Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
Good Saturday morning to all of you Vikings fans, because the Vikings play a preseason game today, this afternoon. We get to watch actual Vikings football. So it's Sam Darnold into J.J. McCarthy, and then Nick Mullins is not going to play. Jaron Hall will take us home probably.
Yep, exactly.
And that's second half. So because we didn't get to as much feedback on Feedback Friday with Judd's camp notes and the snake draft, this is going to be kind of some spillover Feedback Friday on a Saturday, which we'll dive into, Judd. Before we do, let's dive into Park Tavern. We were at Park Tavern a week ago for a Twins trade deadline party that turned into just a complain fest. But we love our friends at Park Tavern.
Park Tavern did nothing wrong. Park Tavern, Park Tavern's
venue.
like, yeah, let's throw a party with score north. It's going to be great. The Twins are going to make a bunch of trades.
Fart noise.
And then poof. But that's not Park Tavern's fault. In fact, you know what? Park Tavern, if anything, Phil Mackey, they delivered. They held up their end of the bargain, which essentially is to be, if I may say, a bar amusement park for adults. You got bowling. you can throw a party, and I'm not talking about like just a small get-together. I'm talking like a family reunion type of party, or a company party by booking a room there, which is fantastic. Or if you just want to go in, get a beer, get something to eat, and watch whatever game your heart desires, Park Tavern is the place. Located in Sports Dad's neck of the woods, the official sports bar, Sports Dad, Louisiana Avenue and Highway 7. Also check them out to make any type of reservation, parktavern.net. Parktavern.net. Cheryl and Phil will take care of you.
Lovely St. Louis Park, Minnesota.
Oh, can't beat it.
Let's start with this one from Matthew Beckendorf via the Score North app. It's a great place for you to send us emails, request to be on Write That Down. We also scour the YouTube comment section. Can somebody help me understand something? I just read a power ranking list that stated the Vikings are, on paper, by far the worst team in the NFC North. I don't see it. First off, Chicago is notorious for ruining quarterback talent. They're going to have to prove it before I believe their offense is at least competent. Secondly, do you remember how pathetic Jordan Love was in his first few games last year for the Packers, and in that first game, that game against the Vikings at Lambeau?
Mm-hmm.
So Matthew, and I've seen similar things too. There was something that came across one of the football Twitter accounts I follow. There, like these are all the teams projected to finish in last place in their division. Vikings are on that list. Vikings over under is like 6.5, 7 wins on the year. What do you make of the majority of the football universe saying the Vikings are the last team in the NFC North?
I think if you are doing a national ranking, right? If you are the national person for ESPN or CBS Sports, and you like cover, in air quotes, all of these teams, and you're putting together projections, I think it makes sense that you put the Vikings last. If you delve a little bit deeper, though, and I'm not saying the Vikings, I think that they're a great team, but like you put them last because your assumption is Darnold's going to play, probably accurate, but Darnold stinks. Well, we don't know what happens when he gets, and he still might stink, but we don't know what happens when he gets a good coach, when he gets Jefferson, who he's developed chemistry with, Addison, right? So I think we need to be careful not to get too offended by people that are putting together, by people that are being relied upon to sort of know something about every team. And then we're like, well, they're attacking our team, because what the person wrote is correct. The Bears have more talent now, and I do think that they might be on the right path, Phil. But I also think there's a chance they won't be good. Like, they're going to start a rookie. They're going to do exactly what the Vikings won't do. And there's a reason why the Vikings don't want to play McCarthy. Now, Williams is probably more talented, but it's still a rookie quarterback. So when somebody's when a magazine is putting together, here's our projections, just keep in mind, they're going with assumptions because that's all they really have to work with.
So even like the head coach, let's take Lions and Packers out of it, because I think any level-headed fan, I know that Matthew Beckendorf, he kind of questions Jordan Love's legitimacy because he only really did it for 8 or 9 games. I'm gonna give Jordan Love was magnificent in November, December, and January I'm going to give you the Lions and the Packers. This is really a Bears or Vikings conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Eberflus versus Kevin O'Connell. I think there's a pretty sizable gap there right now. I mean, Eberflus has a chance now to prove that he doesn't belong on a hot seat in Chicago by developing a young quarterback and what have you. But if I lay it out this way for the Vikings, who won 7 games last year, by the way, it wasn't like they were a 4-win dumpster fire.
Right.
And you tell me if I'm way off on any of this. I think there's a chance the defense gets better from last year. Well, but the cornerbacks and the defensive tackles, well, those were problems last year, and they still jumped from 30th to 15th in defense. I think their edge rusher room is better. I think their safety room is among the best in the NFL. They've got 2 really good dynamic inside linebackers in Ivan Pace and Blake Cashman. So I think there's a chance the defense goes from like 15th or 16th in scoring to maybe 12th. I think it could get better. The run game should be better with just a change on the interior, taking out Dalton Reisner, who's not a great run blocking offensive lineman, putting Blake Brandel in, emphasis schematically. Aaron Jones, huge upgrade over Alexander Madison. So, I mean, run game should be better.
Right.
In terms of weapons on offense, you're going to miss TJ Hawkinson for a few weeks, but you also had Justin Jefferson sidelined for half the season last year. So presumably you're going from a half season of Justin Jefferson to what we have to assume is a full season of Justin Jefferson. So therefore your weapons should be better.
Right.
So, and I know that you're going from a solid top 10, top 11, 12 quarterback in the league for the first half of the year, Kirk Cousins, to this kind of shrug question mark, but I mean, there's a lot of areas where I think the Vikings are going to be better, and then quarterback, that's why they're getting ranked last, is because you don't know what to do with Darnold and you don't know what to do with JJ McCarthy.
Yep. And the Bears fans will say the exact same thing. Well, our team's improved on paper. We've got a quarterback now, and so this is all. But it's funny trying to make predictions at all for this league in particular. Because part of what makes this league fantastic is guys get hurt. The Bears get 2 guys hurt. They could be a last place team. The Vikings get 2 guys hurt. They could. So, and then you've always got your, 1 or 2 teams in each conference that shock you in a good way and a bad way. This is true across all of sports, but I feel it's what makes football a really interesting sport. And then because training camps now are so much less physical, right? You've got that first month plus where it's almost like that's the real training camp. And so a team that could be good eventually gets off to a bad start. There's just so many variables here.
I mean, I know a team that's been in pads about 7 times in the last week and a half.
Yeah.
That's going to be charging in fully calloused up for the regular season.
You watch now, and I mean, this is my objection to why training camps that I don't like them being so soft. I get it's to keep guys healthy, but you watch now, and the month of September, guys are learning again how to tackle half the time.
It's true. Yeah.
You'll just see bad, terrible games for a month because those literally used to be why you played all those preseason games.
Yep. Stanford Evavold chimes in and says, hearing Judd's camp notes about how the team will have a higher focus on running the ball and maybe the power run game got me thinking. As it seems like we're in a bit of a reset, do you think the reset intentionally is involving a schematic reset of sorts by Kevin O'Connell to inject the run more into, coupling while having a quarterback who is much more capable of being mobile and running, which J.J. McCarthy and Sam Darnold's more athletic.
But McCarthy for sure.
McCarthy specifically.
100% right on McCarthy.
It seems like all the primary targets at quarterback in the draft were capable of running or being mobile, and the NFL has moved toward that anyway. So shifting the personnel and the scheme toward that makes some sense starting right now. You've seen an emphasis on the run in training camp.
Oh, absolutely. So that's a really interesting point, and it's a good point. I'm also trying to weigh this with the fact that O'Connell has to know, and they thought they were going to run more last year. The running back wasn't good. The offensive line was not a disaster, but certainly when it came to run blocking, had some struggles. But, yes, it could have to do with a shift in philosophy. I think it also has to do with O'Connell maturing as a coach. Because, at the end of the day, if you told him, hey, look, dude, arena football here, okay? You go put that ball in the air and you don't stop. I think you'd love that because it's fun, and that's what he is. He's a quarterback himself. But I think this is also the maturity of, if you don't have a run game, especially if you're a playoff team, they're probably not going to win, right?
It's pretty crazy that you lose Kirk Cousins last year before the halfway point of the season, right? It was like during your 8th game, 17-game schedule. So you go from having this veteran, reliable, rock solid quarterback that you can trust him throwing the ball a certain number of times a game, right? So you lose him for over half the season. And you're bringing dudes in who are literally flying in, not knowing their teammates' names, and you still finish 4th in pass attempts on the season.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's crazy, right? I mean, it's philosophical, and I get it. I mean, the average yards per attempt on a pass is much more than the average yards per attempt on a run if you just break it down by the numbers.
You should have when Dobbs came in. Or actually, when Hall originally started against the Falcons, that should have been a hard pivot to, we have to run way more now.
Yeah.
And they didn't really have that.
They were 5 pass attempts away from leading the NFL in pass attempts as a team, with basically Nick Mullins, Jaron Hall, and Josh Dobbs, the Pastronaut, playing 9 of the games.
But do you think too, Phil, that like big picture, this is O'Connell, I think, is a good coach. And I think he's got a lot of strengths, but I think, and this again is maturity to me. When you coach in this league and you love to throw the ball, and obviously the league itself loves that, right? But I think that there's just a flat out maturity of coaching as well. Like, there's no way that you couldn't watch the second half with Kirk out and say, you really can't run the ball more.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just I don't even fault O'Connell. I think it's a learning process.
And dude, a lot of those running in the Dobbs games, a lot of the rush attempts were called passes that he turned into runs.
Right. And O'Connell would get sort of pissed off about that at times, I think. So look, I mean, they should have gone into last year with the number 1 running back that didn't turn that wasn't going to wash out. But all of that said, I think the second half of last year taught O'Connell a lot.
Yes, I agree. One more thing on just the effectiveness of running the ball. I think there's 2 main components to like why you should run the ball. There's showing runs so you can build play action into just more effective play action.
Yep.
But then there's just like when you run effectively, you are literally stealing the soul from your opponent's shoulder pads and chest
and
plates.
You're eating clock as well.
Yeah.
Like so then instead of run, incomplete punt. And I'm sure Brian Flores, he privately said some things about that. It's like, dude, I am trying to do this defense in 2023 with duct tape, right? And you're putting us right back out there?
Yeah, with only 30 seconds have come off the clock. Now we have extra possessions. But if you look last year, just the most successful yards per attempt rushing offenses in the league, it's not a coincidence that it lines up with the best offenses in the NFL. These are the 5 teams. One of these 5 is not like the other 4, but these are the 5 teams that led the NFL in yards per attempt. Detroit Lions, awesome offense. San Francisco 49ers, dominant offense.
Beat you up.
Baltimore Ravens, dominant offense. Arizona Cardinals, kind of snuck in there. 5 yards a carry, pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And then Miami Dolphins, who were explosive, put up 70 points in a game at one point. They averaged 5.1 yards a carry. And that wasn't, with the Ravens, a lot of that's Lamar Jackson. With the Dolphins, the 49ers, and the Lions, that is personnel and scheme and commitment.
Yeah. Detroit, San Francisco, and Baltimore also want to kick your ass physically, which I think is where the Vikings realized they came up way short.
Yeah.
Way short. And on Thursday, which was fantastic with our guy, the Thorsky, Thor Nystrom, he had a really good point too, and that is when you sit down and watch film, okay, you've got Jefferson and Addison, and ideally Hawkinson comes back, right? So you cannot do what teams used to do to the Vikings in the Adrian Peterson days, which is we're going to load up the box. Like we're going to sell out to stop the run, pass game, be damned.
Bobby Wade, we're going to just hope that he doesn't burn us one-on-one on the outside.
But if you think about it now, you can't do that, right? So like the Vikings, and I'm sure that there's PFF evidence to back this up. The Vikings were really bad the last 2 years in running the ball. I would guess that they were among the teams that faced the least loaded boxes.
Yeah. It really.
So
if they once again are flirting with the most pass attempts in the NFL, I'm gonna have major questions after the year. Major questions.
I agree with that. You should.
Wyatt Holtzclaw says if Drake Maye is a bust and McCarthy is a franchise quarterback, would you give Kwesi Adofo-Mensah credit for the selection? Here's my answer. No, I wouldn't give him credit. It's too early, but I am predicting at this point, we've seen like 2 weeks of training camp. I'm predicting at this point that Drake Maye will bust and J.J. McCarthy is going to be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I can already foresee everyone praising Kwesi for the pick. But in my mind, by the way, it was more Kevin's pick than Kwesi's pick.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't confuse
But,
that.
I mean, Kevin loved Maye. We know that Kevin loved Maye.
Right.
And some of it was just the price tag. But
Yep.
Wyatt continues. I can already foresee everyone praising Kwesi for the pick, but in my mind, Kwesi was willing to trade 3 first-round picks for Drake Maye, who will be a bust in my opinion. At the same time, he exposed JJ to potentially getting picked by the Giants, the Falcons, the Broncos, the Raiders. I'm curious as to how you feel about Kwesi getting praise for a quarterback that was not his first choice, if it pans out this way. Let me take this one.
Yeah, go ahead. I have a lot of different thoughts about this.
I think, first of all, Wyatt, thank you for the email. But your premise is flawed in that you are assuming if Drake Maye is a bust or if Drake Maye is a hit versus if J.J. McCarthy is a hit versus a bust, that those things happen solely because of who they are as quarterbacks. But the reality is 75 to 80% of why they will either be busts or hits is things around them. It's the environment. It's the weapons. It's the development. It's the head coach. It's the coordinator, the quarterback coach. It's the environment that they will grow up in over the next 2 or 3 years. So, because J.J. McCarthy has a better environment and Drake Maye was, thrown into this crappy neighborhood with, a broken home, parents that are – it's a defensive-minded new head coach, right?
Well, and Joe Milton now, he's running the show, so.
Right. So, I don't think you can say, well, Drake Maye, let's say he's a bust and J.J. McCarthy. If you flip those guys on draft day, and we said this before the draft, I said before the draft, whoever the Patriots draft is going to have a much steeper hill to climb than whoever the Vikings draft because of all those reasons I just mentioned. So you can't just say, well, Maye was always destined to be this and JJ was always destined to be that.
And the thing, too, is I think O'Connell would have handled Drake Maye with the same sort of kid gloves that McCarthy is being handled with now. There was a plan there. But, yeah, I think we're far too quick to try to say that a quarterback's success or failure is solely built on that person and that person alone. I mean, when you've covered the sport for as long as we have now and you've seen the hits and the misses, not every time, but a lot of times, yeah, it's environment, it's coaching. Did you get a defensive guy? Did you get an offensive guy? There's a level of understanding, in my opinion, on quarterbacks that I think is, if not imperative, pretty damn important, right? Mm-hmm. So Drake Maye would have been handled, I think, a lot like McCarthy is here now. And, unless you get what we always go back to, well, Peyton Manning threw 28 picks, led the league in 98, and then he got good. Okay. Maybe he could have, and he did, solely gone into a bad team, been forced to play, and then had a Hall of Fame career. And those guys do exist. But to make them somehow the norm, well, if Manning did it, then this guy can do it. This guy can do it. That's not, it's.
I think Mahomes would have. We'll never know.
Yeah.
But Mahomes got drafted into an incredible situation, sit for a year, really good roster, one of the greatest head coaches of all time.
But the thing about that, though, is, and this is the point, Peyton Manning was wired so differently that he could have that just abysmal year and move on completely.
Yeah.
How many guys can do that, especially in today's society where people are raised differently? You know, you don't get your ass kicked now and be like, okay, the majority of people actually get set back now, young people. So anyway, it's a loaded question because I feel like it's always supposed to pass judgment on one person. And if you're watching McCarthy be developed by the Vikings, there is a village of people trying to help in that process.
Right. Yeah. Okay, Daniel Rubenstein. In fact, I think this is we're aiming for like 20 minutes here. So I think this will be our last one. Presented by Federated Insurance, by the way. This last one here. As a business owner, you got to make sure you have a game plan in place to stay focused on safety and preventing claims. Federated's like having a great offensive line for your business, just a wall of support. They've been around since 1904, helping businesses with risk management, elevating their company through risk management. Find out more. Find out all the tools, resources, and people that can help your business at federatedinsurance.com. And remember, at Federated Mutual Insurance Company, it's our business to protect yours. So this is from Daniel Rubenstein. Hey, Phil, forgive me for I have sinned. I Instagram stalked the heck out of your Instagram page at Phil Mackey, if you'd like to Instagram stalk. My wife and I are huge Purple Daily fans living in Alaska, active duty Air Force. And we are having a bourbon while catching up on Purple Daily. And she asked if you were married. As I scrolled through your Instagram, digging deep into the archives, I noticed that you were wearing a Cubs jersey in one photo in what looks to be your senior high school pictures.
Wow.
Now, the Twins lost to the Cubs earlier this week. And since starting this message, I'm yet on another bourbon. I need to know why you were wearing a Cubs jersey, sir. Love the content. Thanks for everything you do. That's
wow, his wife was creeping on you, it sounds like to me.
Man, can't turn it off. Old Mac and Dak.
I guess not.
Yeah, my dad's side. My dad grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, and my grandma, that whole side of the family is from Chicago, from Kankakee, Illinois, all the way down to Joliet and in between. And so I grew up. The Twins were my primary team. I grew up in Minnesota, but the Twins were always my favorite team. But the Cubs over there in the National League, especially before interleague play, you could kind of have a National League team and they would never see each other unless it was the World Series. So, yeah, I grew up a big Cubs fan, and they were always the team I would watch in the afternoons on WGN with Harry Carey and Steve Stone, later Chip Carey and whoever else they would bring in. So, yeah, WGN, 1:20 first pitch, Kerry Wood, late 90s.
And you were not on the market either, so sorry to the missus.
No, I am married, yes.
Yeah. To his missus.
Well, so is he, apparently.
No, she doesn't care. No, it's not him. He was helping her out.
So, yeah, if you'd like to Instagram stalk us, Judd's not that active, but he's on Instagram. I'm on Instagram.
Twitter.
You can follow Score North on Instagram. So, all right, there's your Feedback Friday on a Saturday here. We're recording this before the Vikings' first preseason game. We will have a recap of that likely Sunday morning for your Purple Daily listening and viewing pleasure. This is Daily Vikings Entertainment, Daily Judd's Camp Notes. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
Mm-hmm.